Bruno Guimarães to Manchester City. The rumours are circulating, they're picking up pace, and the chances of him one day wearing a Manchester City shirt are growing and growing, and I'm incredibly excited about that. If we can get this over the line in January, what a signing that would be, and would absolutely help Manchester City's cause to potentially go and win some silverware this year, whether it's the Champions League or the FA Cup, and the incredibly slim chances of picking up a 5th Premier League title in a row. Yeah, I'm not seeing that in all honesty, but the Champions League, FA Cup, you never know. But what are Manchester City's problems, first of all? And what does Bruno Guimarães bring to the table? And will he alleviate those problems? Because I see a lot of Manchester City fans glazing over Bruno Guimarães, talking about the qualities, but while completely neglecting the problems to his game, the weaknesses to Bruno Guimarães' game. Now, first of all, let's talk about the likeliness of this even happening. Because in January, a player of Bruno Guimarães' quality, leaving the likes of Newcastle, he's their captain, mate. 3 years left on his contract. He had a release clause of £100 million in summer, which Manchester City didn't want to activate, thought that was too much, refused to pay that amount of money. The release clause disappeared, and now it's up for business as well. How much do you have to spend to get this player? But Newcastle, of course, are suffering with financial problems right now, trying to alleviate their PSR concerns right now. So financially, Newcastle are looking to sell, and their hottest prospect, the best asset they have at that football club, is Bruno Guimarães. At 27 years old, signing a player for the reported of around 65 million may be enough to prize Bruno Guimarães out of Newcastle's grasp and into Manchester City's squad. What a signing that would be. What a player he is. An incredible, incredible talent. But does he alleviate all of our problems in midfield? I don't think he does. I think there are problems to his game that I think could exaggerate those problems and potentially worsen them if things were to continue in the way they are doing right now at Manchester City. So take a look at this first of all. So this is one of the biggest problems for me that we've seen all season. Errors leading to shots. Manchester City second in the worst offenders for errors leading to shots. Only worsened by bottom of the league, Southampton. So there's some problems for you right there, that we are being very sloppy in midfield. There are other problems. These aren't the only problems Manchester City are suffering with. The transition is happening all too easily. The shape of Manchester City. But ultimately for me, one of the big ones is avoidable, is errors. That's when it gets frustrating from a fan perspective, because you see the sloppy football that's being played. You think about the Bernardo Silva giveaway for their corner to make it 2-1 against Crystal Palace. You think about Rico Lewis, the number of errors he's made in that midfield. In that game, that one game alone against Crystal Palace, the errors, you couldn't fit them on your hands if you were counting them on your fingers and your thumbs. Do you know what I mean? There were so many errors from Manchester City that were costly in the end as well. So many. And Bruno Guimarães, is he going to be the answer to all of those problems? I'm not convinced he is the answer to these problems. So let's have a look at the rest of Bruno Guimarães' game. So this is your basic. This is fundamentally your basic stuff. So what I'm going to do here is compare him to our 3 midfielders that we currently have at Manchester City in that position, against the likes of Zubimendi and Ederson, the 2 most frequently brought up names as potential signings for Manchester City in January, or worst case in the summer of 2025. And of course Guimarães himself. So pass completion, incredibly basic, but this spans from all of their club activity from the year 2022 to present day. So 2 seasons and this season on top of that as well are included in all of these stats you're about to see. So bottom of the list for pass completion is Bruno Guimarães. So yeah, there's so many stories that can be told by a simple pass completion statistic like that. Doesn't tell you much, does it? But still, being bottom of that list isn't great. It isn't great. You know, you could argue, is he taking more risks with his passes, things like that? Because Kevin De Bruyne's passing accuracy would be probably lower than that in terms of his average pass completion, but he's considered one of the greatest passers of all time because he tries the difficult pass, does Kevin De Bruyne. Now, onto what the real problem is for Bruno Guimarães for me, and it's all surrounds sloppiness, errors. And errors that are leading to shots for Manchester City right now are often leading to goals as well, and often leading to losses of points. And the reason we are where we are, as in 4th in the Premier League table right now. So we want to sign Bruno Guimarães, do we? So what's he going to bring? Okay, there's so many positives that he's going to bring, but there are growing concerns for me personally, areas to his game. So let's have a look at the missed controls, for example. This is per 90 minutes as well to make it fair. Again, can't stress enough, this is spanned over 2.5 seasons almost, basically, to keep it fair. So a lot of football has been played between all of these 6 players. But Bruno Guimarães, 1.59 missed controls per 90 minutes. The worst offender on this list for missed controls. That's sloppiness. Complete sloppiness. Again, Rodri, ridiculous, absolutely sensational from Rodri. But Zubamendi's down there as well, so I'm not suggesting that he's the man to fix all of our problems, but he's a lot more assured with that ball at his feet. Fire it into him and he will not lose it. Bruno Guimarães, on the other hand, is losing it more than once, 1.5 times per game. He is losing the ball by miscontrolling the ball. Now, on to dispossessed. This is the opposition taking it off you. Per 90 minutes, again, over the same amount of time, Bruno Guimarães is one of the worst, he is the worst on this list, but the gap between him and Kovacic, the second worst defender on this list, is monstrous. It's a huge problem for Bruno Guimarães' game. So he's having the ball taken off him in that midfield while he's in a Newcastle shirt. So arguably, yeah, maybe that could change in the Manchester City shirt. Arguably not. Because if you look at the risks Manchester City take, you know, that the football we play isn't as safe as the football that Newcastle play. You know, they have players to protect you, around you. You know, in Manchester City's case, we play the most high-risk football you can possibly imagine. So Bruno Guimarães, again, dispossessed. But then you want to look into more details as to why, well, he's playing in a Newcastle team. So, or maybe his position in the midfield quite isn't the same as Kovacic, Gundogan and Rodri. I mean, Gundogan is up and down, really, to be honest. And don't forget, Gundogan's stats here actually contain his year at Barcelona, don't forget, where I feel like he was playing up the pitch a lot higher in difficult positions. So you think about where you receive the ball. If you're receiving the ball as a defender, or if you receive the ball even as a defensive midfielder, you have more space, you have more time. You're not going to be congested by the opposition defenders who are so willingly trying to take that ball off you. You have a little bit more freedom, which is why you see such high passing percentages for centre-backs and defensive midfielders, because they have the pitch in front of them. They have the picture of what's happening in front of them. And more often than not, they have more space and time than compared to the likes of Erling Haaland, who's got 3 defenders surrounding him more often than not, and which is why his numbers like this would be atrocious, because he's in such a difficult situation to even bring that ball under control, let alone hold on to it once he has got that ball under control. So maybe that's Bruno Guimarães' argument there. So let's have a look. Passes received. So this is the number of passes that you are receiving. So the higher number of passes that you receive, the chances are you are going to lose the ball more often because you're receiving the ball more often from a pass. So again, Bruno Guimarães is not top of this list. In fact, all 3 current Manchester City midfielders are receiving more passes than Bruno Guimarães right now, yet none of those come close to Bruno Guimarães in terms of his miscontrols and number of times he's dispossessed per 90 minutes over the last 2.5 seasons. Again, that could be a Manchester City situation or a circumstantial positional situation for the midfielder. So let's have a look at where he's receiving these passes from. So progressive passes received. This basically suggests where on the pitch you're receiving the ball from. So this doesn't count the first 40% of the pitch. If you're receiving the ball in the final 60% of the pitch, in other words, the attacking parts of the pitch, where it's more difficult to bring the ball under control, where it's more difficult to maintain that control of the football once you have brought it under control. If you look at those stats, Guimarães is not receiving the ball that high up the pitch either. So there's no argument to say that he's playing in a more advanced position and therefore it is more likely to have a miscontrol here and there, or more likely to have the ball dispossessed here and there because of the position that you're receiving the ball. Whereas Ilkay Gundogan is receiving the ball, clearly a lot of those numbers will be in the Barcelona year because he was playing very advanced up the pitch during his time at Barcelona. And he's receiving these passes per 90 minutes. He's receiving 4.14 passes per 90 minutes, indicating he receives a lot more of the ball in more dangerous areas where he's more likely to give up the ball, lose control of the football. Whereas Guimarães isn't. He's receiving in similar areas of the pitch to Rodri. In other words, that only just more than Rodri is Bruno Guimarães receiving the ball in more advanced areas of the pitch over the course of the 90 minutes. So to me, that's a real indication that Bruno Guimarães is not going to be the perfect solution for Manchester City. He does not completely cover all of our problems, but there are areas to Bruno Guimarães' game that are absolutely sensational. This is a very nitpicking video that I've done here. I've zoned in because I've seen a lot of problems around or rather a lot of excitement around the news of Bruno Guimarães, and there's definitely worthwhile excitement there. I think he's a fantastic player. You know, you think about his ability to carry the ball, his aggression. There's a lot of his strengths are not They don't have metrics associated with them. You think of his positional awareness, you think of his attitude, you think of his aggression, which links to counter press. You think of his ability to take the ball off the opposition quickly. The number of these are numbers that can be measured. His tackles won. He's fantastic. His interceptions, fantastic. Defensively, an incredible player. An absolutely incredible player. And he's not bad in the attacking area of the game either. I think he's got the highest expected assists on this list as well. So he is a fantastic all-round player, but there is a small aspect to his game, and it comes down to concentration. It comes down to sloppiness. It comes down to basic errors. And Manchester City, as I already showed you in the graphic at the beginning of this video, we are the second worst defenders in the league for errors leading to shots from the opposition. And this player, Bruno Guimarães, isn't going to fix that problem, clearly. What do you think, Blues? Do you think Bruno Guimarães is going to answer all of our problems, or is this just a case of a fantastic midfield option for Manchester City to have, and we have to grow and learn with the player? Will he be able to improve under the tutelage of Pep Guardiola? Let me know your thoughts, Blues. Like and subscribe to Typical City, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is Typical City now.